Hi, Jason Pilgrim here from the Profitable Practice Podcast, where we help allied health professionals just like you empower and inspire the lives of so many more people by building bigger and better businesses. Let's go and get stuck in right now.
Managers, good managers, bad managers, strong managers, weak managers. We've all been there. We've had some fantastic ones. We've also had some pretty terrible ones, let's be honest. There's 5 distinct signs of a weak manager. Are you a weak manager? Do you display these, or do you maybe work for one? Let's get stuck in right now. They're easy to identify, easy to rectify, and hi everyone, and welcome to this podcast all about managers and all about the leadership styles of managers. I mean, first and foremost, we must understand the difference between leadership and management, and I'm not going to go into that in a huge area in this podcast, but look, to become totally honest, I'm going to put it right out there. In our industry, in the health professionals industry, we hear it all the time. We've even got these, so-called gurus that come out of the woodwork that want to try and tell you that every practitioner has to be a leader and you have to lead and you have to do this. And yeah, in some respects that is true. We need to make sure that you've got good principles of leadership in certain areas. But the problem is that the vast majority of people push towards leadership, and they push towards the philanthropic, visionary side of things, that they can do everything, the entitlement side, but they forget the management side. And being completely honest with you, management is, in the health business, is probably even more strongly and more necessarily needed to run a successful health business than what a pure leadership role actually is. Yet over the last 10 years, we keep hearing all the time about great leaders. And look, there's some fantastic work out there, and guys like Simon Sinek does all the work with starting with why and finding your purpose and vision. Hey, I love that stuff. I'm certainly a proponent of it, but we have to make sure that the management componentry is in there. Look, over the years, we've been through different periods of management. You see it in society, in different industries, in different organizations and things like that as well, where different managers operate on different avenues. And it's always the experienced manager that always seems to know the right things to say and do. You're not born a true manager or a great manager. They're skills that you actually learn over a period of time. And we want to make sure that we're always moving away from being that strong and dominating, forceful, domineering type management that, let's face it, was very prevalent in decades gone by. So we now actually understand that the best form of management is, yes, you want to make sure you are a strong manager, but you're a strong manager for the right reasons in the right way. And there's some very simple telltale signs to make sure that you yourself are going to be operating as a strong manager and not portraying that weakness. But hey, for some of you guys, you might also be in a scenario where you actually feel like you're working for a weak manager right now. So this could be a really powerful, I guess in many respects, diagnostic tool for you to have a better understanding of where your management is, whether you're the weak manager or the strong manager, the over-top domineering situation, or whether you're in a scenario where you're actually working for one. So look, here's the thing. Strong managers these days are strong enough to lead through trust, through good communication and integrity, but it's the weak managers that have to use that force of, I've got my name on the door, I've got the job title, etc., to be forceful and domineering to make people listen to them. So that's the easiest thing straight first and foremost. I guess in many respects, it's a fear-based management that we talk about. They're the weak managers. If you have to run something by fear, out of the fact of, well, if this doesn't happen, people are going to lose their jobs, and I actually do see it, and it's not as blatant as what it is in other industries in years gone by, but I see it a lot of the time in managers that manage quite strongly and quite dominating for their business. And it might be their business, they might go really well, they've got lots of staff turnover, and the staff, not team, and they think they're God's gift to everything, but you actually see it in the way they communicate, and they're none the wiser to actually realise that they're actually showing a a form of weakness, and it's a major reason why people actually move around so much, because they actually see that as a weakness. Like, you subconsciously see that as a weakness in that manager, as opposed to being that strong and dominating manager that those people think they are. So if we move on, and we'll get stuck straight into the 5 easy signs, but it's something that, to spot a weak manager, you can see them a mile away. They're the ones that always raise their voice. They're the ones that make threats. They like to keep team members or staff. I'm going to keep saying staff because they're not really team members. They're not really engaged most of the time. They're staff members that they feel a little bit on edge. They always feel like they need to impress their manager. They need to impress the boss. It's all about making sure that person's happy, and if I do this, that person will like it. Those type of scenarios are a clear display of where weak management is actually being entailed in that business. And when you compare that to the complete opposite, a strong manager, as I said before, leads through trust and integrity and really good communication. They trust the team. They trust the employees, the team members that they have around them. Good, strong managers don't always have to be right. In many respects, they don't necessarily care whether they're right or not, as long as the right outcome and solution emerges from that conversation or discussion. They know that they don't have to be bossy, and they trust their employees to know what to do. They ask for help when they need it. And so when you think about that, you compare that to the weak manager. It's the weak manager that doesn't trust themselves enough to lead that way. They feel that the weak manager feels like they're always right. Or something happens, they go, ha, see, I told you so. Or that's why I said to do it that way. All of those types of traits. And you're probably thinking about some of your colleagues right now. Maybe it's you, maybe it's your colleagues, that you've heard them do that before and go, yep, just like I said it would happen. Or the reason why it didn't happen is because that's not what I told you to do. What you needed to do was follow the system. You needed to blah, blah, blah. And when you're constantly in that type of frame of mind, and I've got 3 or 4 people that I know quite well that lead in that situation, again, they think they're not doing anything wrong. They think they're a good, strong manager. They know what to do. Why aren't the people doing the right thing, etc., etc.? But that's actually a form of weak management. So that might be a bit of a reality check, and there might be a few people that have just got a bit of a hit between the eyes on that. Hey, no disrespect, nothing personal. We all have things to learn and grow and develop from over time. Maybe that's what you need to be able to work on right now. It's such a big communication barrier with teams, whether you call them employees, staff members, team members, etc. And how you play that with your team and your employees is how it's also going to portray across to your family and to your friends and to your colleagues, to your clients. And so this is a lot bigger than just simply saying, oh no, it's okay, or what's this guy on this podcast going on about. You've got to have a really good understanding that this is a much bigger scenario to understand than just, am I a weak or strong manager? So look, here's the thing, the 5 sure signs that your management or the manager that you work for, or you, is a weak manager pretending to be a lot stronger at what you do and say and portray to other people. It's 5 things. Let's not feel sorry for ourselves. Let's not feel sorry for those managers. Let's make sure that we do our best to improve ourselves and to help those people improve. And look, at the end of the day, if you're working for someone who you identify is in this situation as a weak manager, maybe it's time for you to actually step away. It's obviously not going to be the right place if you're not completely in line with them. So here's the thing. First one, let's get stuck straight in. Can't ask for help. When a weak manager isn't sure what to do next, they don't ask for help. Instead, what they'll tend to do is try and just ad hoc, make something up on the spot. We always hear that saying, fake it till you make it. And to be totally honest, we have this all the time where someone won't know what to do or say, won't know the perfect scenario. They'll do the quick tap dance, so here's what we're going to do. And it's just a quick thought, no thought goes into it. And bang, here's going to be the solution. Yep, great, do it. Yep, go, yeah, you do this, you do that, great. And that'll fix it. Fantastic, good. And let me know how it goes. Like, that's not the way a strong manager acts. That's purely weak management. You need to be able to actually ask for input from the people around them. What do you think is going to work best in this situation? If something's gone wrong in the clinic, rather than, hey, it should have been done like this, or, oh shit, we don't want to lose this contract, let's go and just do this and this, come back, you say this, you go and do that bit and come and tell me what happens. Or I'll take over and I'll just say this, this and this. That's weak management. You need to be able to ask for input from your team. Ask for input from your colleagues. How do you feel this scenario is going to play out? Questions like that is actually the sign of a strong manager. What do you think went wrong here? Or if you had to, what are the 2 solutions right now that you feel would be in our best interests? How do you feel you might be able to help this situation? What if I was to do blah, blah, blah? Do you feel that would be a positive or negative step forward? They're the type of questions that a strong manager asks. They're asking for advice, asking for help, knowing that it's a collaboration. It's based on trust that they aren't the only one that's going to know the scenario and the perfect situation and solution, because they're the manager, because their name's on the door, etc. They've got the extra responsibility, so they're apparently meant to know. Nah, sorry, that's weak management. So, the other challenge with that is if you try and reason with a weak manager in that scenario, they'll most of the time get angry and frustrated. And we've all had it where someone will turn around and say, well, I don't think that's going to work because blah, blah, blah. And they'll turn around with a statement like, yes, it will, because I'll make sure that, and you go, here we go, trying to be all forceful, trying to be domineering, trying to demand this and expect, etc. And let's be honest, we've all done that once or twice, but some people do it all the time, and that again is a sign of a weak manager. So if you're employed by a weak manager and that's happening, you can pretty simply identify that. You need to be able to have a manager asking you for advice and help, ask for your input. Otherwise, anything that you do is going to be seen as rocking the boat, and it's not going to go very well for you and your long-term employment with that team. Number 2, a weak manager will always need a scapegoat. We'll always need someone to blame, because it's never their fault. You'll notice that something's gone wrong, and the manager just has one goal in mind. They want to find someone else to blame. All right. So you will see scenarios in place where it's who. The question around who tends to always invoke blame and invokes a response. Like if you say, oh, who did this? You're asking people to basically make an excuse and blame someone else. So you're actually fostering that. So if a system isn't followed and something goes wrong, or when the clinic was closed yesterday, the alarms weren't put on, and someone lets you know as the manager the next morning that the alarms weren't on, and your response is, who was on last night and who didn't put the alarms on? You're actually, in that scenario, straight away looking for someone to blame. You're looking for someone else to also foster that blame. So you're actually self-perpetuating the blame game of providing yourself with a scapegoat and providing everyone else to look for scapegoats and not take responsibility. And so the accountability and responsibility side of things is a very, very big thing as a manager. You need to be able to turn around and say questions like, well, what exactly can we learn from this? Or what was the breakdown that actually occurred that meant that the system wasn't followed? All right. And if you do need to ask the who question, like who was in here last night and didn't put the alarm on, as soon as you find out that answer, you don't go for, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, or tell them this, tell them that. It has to move into, okay, great. So we've had a bit of a breakdown. What is it that we can work on or to help this not to occur again? Maybe it's a question like, have we got a problem with our system that other people like myself can work on or improve on so that this doesn't happen again? There's a very, very big difference between going on a witch hunt to try and make a scapegoat and finding someone to blame, and actually being in a situation where you're actually taking responsibility, and obviously full accountability for a breakdown in a particular system. Let's move on pretty quickly here. Number 3 is a weak manager will never be able to say, I don't know. Those 3 words, really crucial, I don't know. A strong manager will always be saying, well, here's what we're going to do. Okay? A strong manager may turn around and say, I don't really know what the answer is, but the weak manager is actually afraid to say, I don't know. So you want to be the strong manager that's able to say, hey, you know what? It's a really great problem that's come up. I'm not 100% sure of the answer right now. And then move into the questions that I spoke about a few moments ago. You know, what do you think? Asking questions to seek more information, to seek more clarity around the maybe the challenge or the problem at the time. Or maybe it's a positive thing moving forward, and you're trying to proactively put some different marketing in place. It's the strong manager that's going to say, look, I don't 100% know how this will play out, but I'm feeling the following. What do you think? If we do A, B, and C, do you think that will be this result or that result? So it's not always coming across as not knowing. And a weak manager will always, well, I hate using this sort of phrase, but I guess a weak manager will always lie. They'll often, throw out figures that are all absolute BS. And you know what they say, and even this is made up. 95% of all stats are made up. I mean, that was made up in its own right just then. I don't know what the percentage is. Well, hang on, there you go. See, that's a great example. I've just done it there as a strong manager. I don't know what the percentage is, but there is a percentage there of statistics that are actually made up. I don't know what it is. And so even if me talking right now, I'm not deliberately doing that, but that's a sign of strong management. I don't know what this is, but, and away you go from there. Hey, I was really proud of that. That's a good little example, right and first and foremost. You want to make sure that all of your energy doesn't go into blaming someone else, that it goes into taking responsibility and accountability. And if you don't know, be open and honest. It shows transparency, and you will gain more respect and integrity from other people as a net result. Number 4, a strong manager will always focus on big goals, and the weak manager will always just measure all the minute little details of everything. Now, I'm not saying not to test and measure everything. That's not what I'm saying. But a strong manager will focus on the big goals. They'll have the one big project, the 5 big tasks. They'll be very driven on not the day-to-day tasks and the small things. They will actually have a bigger avenue of what they're working for and what they need to actually do. But the weak manager will rely on measuring everything. So they'll have a yardstick as such for everything. They'll manage by numbers. And when you manage by numbers and you try and over manage and get a number for everything, then that's when you're actually not really managing at all. You're just looking through stats. You're trying to pull everything together. I've got my financial mastery formula. There's the 8 numbers that you need to be measuring on your allied health business, and there's 3 others as well on the accounting side. And literally from those 11 or maybe 12, you can run $1 million health clinics, multiple locations, teams that you never, you just have to lead. You don't have to see clients if you don't want to, and be very, very profitable from those 11 or sometimes 12 numbers. Yet I see clinics that have got umpteen amounts of data and reports, and look, we see practice management systems that want to tell you about how many reports. There's other external companies like clinic apps and things like that can spit out 30 different stats and all these extra reports. But the fact is, that's actually portraying weak management, because it's not the nth degree of numbers of every single thing that's going to provide you with the best benefit. That's showing weak management, where you're trying to have a yardstick for everything. You manage by these numbers, as opposed to the strong manager knows the results. You're measuring by the big items, and you're not worrying about measuring every single little key performance activity. You're measuring off the key performance activity on the KPI. So that's number 4. And number 5 is that a weak manager is never able to say, I'm sorry. And guys, this is a really massive one. It really does get on my goat, to be totally honest. I see it all the time. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. Hey, I think I swore earlier in this podcast. That's me. I'm natural, being normal. But if you've been offended by that, I'm sorry. That's a bit of a weakness in me talking and presenting, etc. So here's the thing. A strong manager will always be able to say, stop, sorry. And I wouldn't be able to count the amount of times I've walked into team meetings with managers in my various companies, clinics, with my international directors on some of my boards in my other companies, and I've led out with words like, guys, I'm sorry. I feel like I've let you down because blah, blah, blah. That's not showing weakness, that's showing strength. To know that you've made a mistake, or that you've let someone down, or that we should have done something else, you're admitting that you're human, and people have respect for that. People like that. You're going to get more trust and more integrity and respect by being able to say sorry. Now, I know there's a lot of people in our industry that are managers, or they run their own business and they talk themselves up about things, etc. And I might have known them for 5 or 10 years, and I know from their team members and them, they've never said sorry for anything. They'll screw up on something and they know it's their fault, but they just won't ever be able to admit it. They can't actually walk in and say sorry. The weak managers also can't be criticised because they can't accept negative feedback. They'll go on. Their response will always be quite personal because their ego is too fragile to acknowledge any room for growth. Ooh, I like that. That their ego is too fragile to acknowledge or experience any room for growth. And so, guys, it's really important to understand that as a big one. You need to be able to say sorry. You need to be able to know where your limitations are and be the first one to lead forward on that and taking that ownership and responsibility. So, guys, they're the 5 things. It's a really, really simple process. You can identify it maybe in yourself, maybe hopefully not, but you've got to be able to, I'll tell you again, number 1 is you can't ask for help. That's what a weak manager can't do. A weak manager always needs a handy scapegoat. A weak manager can't ever get themselves to say, I don't know. A weak manager measures everything to the nth degree when not needed, and a weak manager can't ever say, I'm sorry. So, guys, they're the 5 things. Hopefully, if you've identified that a few times with yourself, look great. There's a few things that you can work on. Oh, excuse me. Just had a little bit of nearly a mini burp there. So apologies for that. And see, even just in that, that's me apologising, showing strong management. Here's the thing, guys. Try and work on these things. The emotional intelligence around this can be quite tricky. It's about changing that behaviour and being a better person. You're going to get better responses from your team. You're going to have better engagement. You're going to have people have a lot more trust, respect, honesty, transparency, integrity. It's going to be much more of a dynamic place that achieves better outcomes for all of your patients. You're going to be able to change more people's lives, have a greater mentoring type role with people as well. If you're working for someone, you've identified these, and you need to be able to work around that. And I'll do another podcast in and around how you can work with changing those behaviours and work with people from that point moving forward. So, guys, until next time, go and get stuck in. They're the 5 reasons and the 5 signs of weak managers, whether you or you work for one or that is you. I'll talk to you guys in another episode very, very soon. That's all for now. Cheers.
Hey, guys, thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Profitable Practice Podcast. I would love nothing more than for you to be able to leave a review. I get so much joy out of listening and reading the amazing things that you guys say about this. So please subscribe to our channel, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Let's get some more fantastic information out there so all of us can grow the industry together. Cheers for now.